Affordable hot hatches doomed as the electric vehicle asteroid hurtles toward the internal combustion engine and global automotive players push even more enthusiastically towards an EV future. Is now the time to pull the trigger on a Megane RS, Golf GTI, or the upcoming Civic Type R. Welcome. I'm CarsGuide Deputy Editor James Cleary, and joining me on the podcast panel to look at this Dino Juice Hot Hatch Extinction event are key contributor Steve Ottley in sunny Detroit. Steve.
Hello, or should I say howdy? That was not Detroit's not really howdy territory.
Yeah. Howdy, y'all. And
yo, what's up?
And senior journalist Richard Berry.
G'day.
We'll also cover off this weekend news and take a look at the fresh metal we've been driving in Cars in the Garage. So stay with us. So first of all, the catalyst for this discussion is a Matt Campbell news story, and it's specifically around the the death knell has been signaled for another affordable combustion engine hot hatch in the shape of the Megane RS. It follows pretty hot on the heels of the Focus ST and the Fiesta ST from Ford. We're not guaranteed that there'll be a next generation of, say, the i30 from Hyundai. So is N combustion affordable hot hatches in peril? What do we think? Is it a moment in time? Should we be thinking about, well, I've dreamt about buying a little hot hatch. Should we be acting right now? Richard, what do you reckon?
I think that people don't like cars anymore. I'm serious. I think that a new generation of kids are coming through and they don't give a damn. Hot hatches were born in the late 70s and the early 80s when kids stole their parents, hatchbacks in Europe because they didn't have Commodores and Falcons. Well, they did, but, the small hatchback was more appropriate over there.
Carltons and Granadas.
That's right, the Vauxhall. This is where it's come from. And I don't think these days that there is a market for them, even though I love them. I love the Megane RS. It's fantastic. I love the Clio RS. That was fantastic as well. The Focus ST, the Fiesta ST, I can't get enough of them. But the problem is I think I'm a dinosaur as well. And this, the kids that are being born these days don't want them and they're not buying them.
It's an interesting point, Steve. Have you ever been to the Time Attack or et cetera, out at Sydney Motorsport Park and other venues where, have you, Richard? There are a lot of younger, enthusiastic people out there.
I would counter Richard's argument with saying I'm not entirely convinced that young kids aren't interested in cars. You go to events like that and you do see young kids out there that are enthusiastic about performance cars. I think the key word in this whole discussion is affordable performance cars. Even hot hatches, we've discussed it before on this show, hot hatches are becoming less and less affordable.
Yeah.
Like a Volkswagen GTI doesn't start with a 3 anymore, it starts with a 5. And typically, if you think back, when we were younger, you could get a Suzuki Swift Sport or,
good car.
The Fiesta ST that we're looking at, went from being, in the last 2 generations of its life, it went from being a roughly a $25,000 car to you're spending nearly $35,000 to get on the road.
When I was younger, there weren't any cars for a start.
Yeah,
it's difficult to comprehend.
But you all wanted ponies, yes?
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's harsh, JC, on yourself. I thought you drove those cars with the feet underneath, like
most of them were
neighbor
steam.
Fred.
That's right. Steam powered.
Yeah. Well, what was the Megane's price? That was
60s. Yeah,
that's right. And it started off
2018.
47 and a half, and then trophy spec only. By the time we get to 2022, 62 and a bit plus on-road costs. So that's absolutely, to Steve's point, that what does affordable mean anymore?
It doesn't help that it's French. And it doesn't help that it's overpriced. The only way that you can make it less accessible is if you hit it in the basement and behind a locked door. Like that's just, But having trouble trying to sell Renaults and Peugeots and Citroens anyway without overpricing them like that.
Yeah, but this is the thing: $60,000 for hatchback. I recently drove an Audi RS3, fantastic car, but that is a $90,000 hatchback.
Yes,
$90,000. That is just a huge sum of money to spend on a hatchback. It's ultimate. At the end of the day, bottom line, it's a hatchback. It is not a big car. It's not a sports car. It's not a coupe. It's not a convertible. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It is a conventional, normal.
It's a cracking car,
hatchback.
isn't it? It's a classic case of what the market will bear and how much a 4-ring badge might be worth as well. You know, it's tremendous dynamically, but there's also a little bit of prestige goes with it. You're paying for that as well.
A45, like who can afford that? You know, that's ridiculously expensive, and it is a great hot hatch. But again, I think the whole ethos of a hot hatch is I can't afford a race car, but this is a hot hatch. This is a hatchback I can afford, and the power to weight ratio is going to be magnificent.
Yeah.
And it's all I've got.
Well, I mean, it's interesting also, Matt Campbell makes the point in his story that the flip side is that there are some new arrivals due. We've got Civic Type R early next year. We've got Corolla GR. We've already got the GR Yaris, which is an absolute cracker. But they're not going to be cheap. Again, the byword here is affordable. What does affordable mean when it comes to these cars? It feels like the end is nigh.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line message here is if you have been waiting to buy a hot hatch, if you're on the fence, now's the time to do it. You know, I mean, look, breaking news. I was talking to Trevor Worthington, who runs all of Ford's internal combustion engine programs.
That's Mrs. Worthington's little boy, isn't it?
Yeah. I believe his brother Sam does some acting.
That's right. Yeah,
but
sister-in-law, pretty handy in a bikini.
He also heads up Ford Performance, and we did ask him the question today, a few hours ago when you were sleeping. What is the future of the Focus and Fiesta ST? And his comments were more like, well, you should probably talk to my colleague who looks after the electric cars.
Exactly.
And I think again that will get back to now. Look, they might make a fantastic electric hot hatch, but at least for the foreseeable future, it's very, very unlikely that is going to be an affordable hot hatch in any conventional sense of the word. It is not, it will certainly not be a $20,000 car, and that's sort of where that I think the demise of the hot hatch began when as the prices creep up, the demand drops. It's just inevitable, So.
Well, for anyone who's
we are rapidly approaching the end of this era.
We're blinded by something though, and we're just assuming that all the people that want hot hatches or performance cars are buying them new. So if you were to go onto Auto Trader or CarsGuide listings, you'd be able to find Focus STs, Fiesta STs, Clio RSs, and you'd probably be able to get one for pretty good money. Maybe not right now.
This is the thing. I mean, obviously, look, we're now living in a current this moment in time. Everything is a bit more expensive, but when you increase the initial purchase price, you also increase the used car price. And so again, if you look at go back in the old days where Fiesta ST was a $25,000 prospect, and the Suzuki Swift Sport, you're talking about cars that started in the in the 20s, mid to low 20s, and they got into the teens quite quickly. And then young blokes could afford them, and young girls could afford them, and you could go out there and you could have some fun. And
that's right.
We're sort of, you can't say, hey kids, you can't have these things. They're too expensive for you. And so they move on and accept it. And then we say, oh, why are they all interested in it?
Well, maybe there's two sides to this in that, yes, there is a market of young people who are still really keen, but at the same time, that's being defeated because the price is putting it out of their price range. So then they end up just going, well, I can't afford it.
Oh, the answer is a Camry. The answer is a Camry hybrid. It always is.
It is. That's the answer to everything, isn't it?
But for anyone who's hit the panic button and thinking, I've got to buy a Megane RS today, I can give you a stock update, courtesy of Matt's story. There have been 98 of them sold so far this year, and there are 7 currently in dealer stock in the country. So get in fast.
Now, perhaps a bigger question, and for another podcast, but what is Renault in Australia without the Megane RS? I mean, it's their flagship car. It's been there like shining light for so long.
Absolutely.
It adds a lot of luster to the brand, doesn't it? For sure. And I mean, I wrote a little opinion story a little while ago. You might recall, Richard, we were talking about it in the office. What's AMG without combustion engines? They start to become electric. Is it the same? No. Where's the rumbling V8 and the crackling 4 cylinders and all of the things that, from an oral point of view, have made that brand so special?
I would say 80% of the appeal of an AMG is the sound. alone.
Yeah.
An electric AMG with artificial sound.
And it's interesting. It's probably a whole other podcast, but I was watching a video on YouTube of the guy who runs Alpha's classic fleet. So he also looks after all of their documentation and all of that kind of stuff, but their fleet of classic cars. And he was talking about a GTA when he was a kid and he heard it driving past. He burst into tears. I just don't know whether an electric car is going to cause that kind of emotional reaction.
Just as a side, can you send me the link to that video? The argument, again, I think going back to Richard's original point is that young people are interested. And I think one of the things we hear is young people are more interested in electric cars. So maybe that is the answer at the end of the day. Maybe if, Ford, for example, builds a small electric hot hatch, maybe it will be relatively affordable. Yeah. And that might be what they want. I still remember talking to Andy Palmer when he was back at Nissan, the big Nissan executive.
Yep.
And the 86, Toyota had just released the 86, and we said to him, what's your response to that? Are you going to build some sort of affordable performance, coupe? And his response was, no, we have the Juke. The Juke is what young people want. They want a funky crossover. Now, maybe a Nismo Juke is not quite the same as an 86.
No. That explains a lot.
I wanted the
that might
Duke,
be a bad
GTR.
example. Yeah, but
the Duke GTR, the one that had the R34 GTR's powertrain in it.
Yes.
Here's the question:
that
would a Puma ST be more appealing than a Focus ST or a Fiesta ST?
I mean, you'd have to drive it, but the Ford's abilities in terms of being able to tune that Focus and the Fiesta ST, Puma ST, why not? Does that car not exist? Is there?
It does exist.
ST? Yeah,
there's an S.
We don't get it.
No,
it's on the it's on the very long list of Fords we don't get. But it does exist, and is that something? I mean, Hyundai's got the Kona end. Volkswagen's just launched the T-Roc R. So we're moving towards that era. I think I've written in the past about this literal rise of the hot hatch to these little SUV. They're not, can't really call them hot hatches. Hot SUVs sounds a bit hot compact SUVs doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Spicy SUVs.
Spicy SUV. Yeah, that's
very spicy. Yeah. I suppose the other thing is here we are, people of a certain age wedded to the whole love affair with internal combustion engines. And Richard, to your point, are kids into cars? Are they not? Whatever happens, as they grow older, cars are going to be more and more electric and electrified. Yeah, it's just they'll have a different appreciation of what sounds great. Maybe they'll love the zinging hum of an electric Focus ST. It's what we're used to.
Who knows? They may grow up to love, they may be able to program their own sounds. My kids edit videos on their phones, and I'm like, how do you do that? Show me. I'd love to know how to do that.
Exactly.
Everybody handy, but
I can't wait.
Maybe they'll do that.
I can't wait to be sitting on my porch just yelling at those kids as they drive past my house.
And you're
in my days, we didn't have to make up a sound.
Well, the problem is you'll have a shotty with you as well.
Yeah, that's right.
You're just on the rocking chair with the shotty there. But
you'll have to, because we'll be living in the apocalypse. But I honestly think you're right. I think in the future we'll have electric cars, and I think the price of electric cars will come down to the point where it'll almost democratize the electric car, and you'll have Chinese brands coming in with really, really, really affordable hot hatches. Brands that don't even exist today will be dominating the market in 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
It's really hard to foresee what's going to happen. But I honestly think that the sound won't matter to kids just being born today. It will be about speed and looks.
Isn't it, Steve, a couple of steps above the affordable category in the States? Is it the Challenger that's gone EV or Charger?
They've unveiled
a concept.
Charger. Actually, I actually had a look at it today, and I'll be honest, it is stunning in the metal. I mean, it's a really striking looking car. It's a, I guess you'd call it a 4-door coupe.
But it sounds shit. Oops, sorry.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, that's okay. We're all friends. We're all friends here, Richard.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I
mean, there's no other way to describe it.
They are, well, it's personally, I would say it sounds different. It's, what are they? They've given it some funky name like Franzatonic exhaust or something.
Franzatonic. I love me a Franzatonic exhaust.
Yeah, I mean, who doesn't? But I'll tell you what, the people at Dodge's naming department, they work overtime to come up with wacky names for things.
We've had Harry Tran, while we've been on air, has said, look, he hears that the Chevy Corvette might move to battery electric vehicle. I mean, I think it's a case of everything will probably move to battery electric.
Well, yeah,
it's a matter of when.
He's right. I'm pretty sure General Motors has confirmed both a hybrid and a fully electric Corvette will be coming in the not too distant future.
Planes, Trains and Dogs and Cars says the Jetsons car sound will make a big comeback with EVs, and I'm all for that. I loved it. Yeah, George.
Honestly, I do not want to see a day when there's an electric Corvette.
Right.
Like, for goodness sake.
Well, stay in touch,
Nothing
Richard, because
I'll
consistently ask you if you're okay. And I hope that
honestly, they should just retire the name with its petrol V8. Like, they just can't.
All right, look, I think that's a really good discussion. We've probably sparked some thoughts there, but it's time to move on, and we are going to move into the news of the week now. Steve, we've made it plain that you're there in Detroit, timed to coincide with the Detroit Motor Show, and also the release of a certain blue oval model. Fill us in, please.
Yes, for those viewing us on the YouTubes, they can see these little numbers behind me. Ford has just unveiled the 7th generation Mustang. And Richard, you'll be happy to know there's not a battery in sight. Well, I mean, obviously it has a regular battery, but no.
Yes.
No. But they have, look, there was a lot of speculation before this car was launched that it was going to be on an all-new platform, that was going to have hybrid capabilities, potentially fully electric. Richard can celebrate. It is effectively an update of the previous model. So still got a good old-fashioned 5-liter V8.
With a bit more power and torque.
It's got a bit more power. Yep. They've unveiled a brand new trim level called the Dark Horse, which is, I mean, it's in basic terms, you would say it seems to be a sort of a replacement, for the Mach 1. It seems to take a lot of the learnings from the Mach 1 and apply it to what as I understand it will be a permanent member of the lineup. It does have a different horsey badge. Which
nice, like a
very keen to point out. No, it has a front-on horse as opposed to the famous, as you can see behind me back here. The old prancing pony, or
a front-on horse,
a front-facing horse. So you just basically get a big bunch of
big face. Why the long face?
Yeah, horse head.
Unreal. Great.
So, but yeah, look, honestly, in the metal, it's fantastic. It's a fantastic looking car. They've developed completely different front fascias for the EcoBoost and the GT. So, I mean, again, if you're on YouTube, you can see at the front there. There's a much more
EcoBoost is in the background.
EcoBoost is in the background.
Yeah.
Some may argue the EcoBoost is actually the better looking of the two. It's a sleeker kind of appearance.
Right.
But the cabin is the big talking point because it was the big criticism point of the what they call the S550, the outgoing 6th generation Mustang. They'd gone for that retro look. They'd obviously bought the plastics from the same bloke that makes lawn chairs for Bunnings. It was, it was personally, I sort of loved the retroness of it, but it was a bit cheap and so not that flash in some places.
Full screen.
They've gone full digital. They've chucked the iPads in, so you got a fully digital. High grade models will basically get almost what will appear to be one continuous screen that wraps around.
The
front of it, but
head-up display. Have they
not?
Because I remember going
head-up display. I haven't really dived into all the complete detail, but they have told us. They have told us, and again, you'll be happy. The digital display has up to 6 different. The instrument cluster can display 6 different types of graphic displays.
Great.
2 of which are based on the Fox body Mustang from the 1980s.
Fantastic. Yeah,
there is a daytime mode and a nighttime mode, which might be the coolest one because you get those 80s analog dials in that green unique 80 shade of green.
That
So
sounds
it's
great.
very,
That's
very
good
cool.
fun.
So yeah, so look, it is what it is. It's not trying to pretend to be anything that it's not. It's just a good old-fashioned American muscle car. And Ford hopes, as we've been discussing today, that by going to that more digital high-tech cabin, it's going to attract younger people, which is what the original Mustang was all about.
Super.
Absolutely. I mean,
Super.
the old tagline of Mustang was what? Fast, affordable, and fun, right?
Yeah.
So and this is that Mustang, and like I no joke, it is the last two-door affordable V8 on the planet. You can't get one. And to get a car like that, you've got to step up to a Benz or a BMW. There's nothing else out there.
You won't get a manual gearbox.
No.
You'll be spending north of $100,000.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
so anyway.
What?
Now here's the question though. Why does no one else do it? It is the biggest selling sports car in the world. It'll be the biggest selling sports car. Now, I wrote a piece recently for CarsGuide talking about, does the Nissan Z have an opportunity here? Because it's going to be on sale next year, and the Mustang is going to effectively be in a transitional year because this car won't arrive until the very end of the year, the last quarter. But the bottom line is, come 2024,
well,
Toyota's
put a manual in the Supra. There are a few sniffing around the edges of it, but it's a bit dearer.
Yeah,
that's true.
Now I guess look, it'll be interesting to see what the price is. More technology typically brings a higher price tag, so. Maybe it's going to be closer to Supra.
Sorry, Richard, you were going to say something.
I was going to quickly ask about marquee. In your late night, shenanigans with Ford executives, are we getting the marquee in Australia? I mean, I can handle electric in that type of form, but are we? Do you know?
They continue to say no on the record.
You're being so careful.
I would say now look, I would have said this last week before I came to speak to people over here at Ford HQ. It's coming. I mean, I think that they've sort of said my personal belief, and not based on conversations directly with Ford management. They want to, as they love to say, they don't talk about future product, but they've said they're going to have 5 electric vehicles in Australia, and I think it's a pretty safe bet that's going to be one of them. What I can't tell you is how it drives, because I did get to drive it this week. So stay tuned. Readers should stay tuned, because there will be a review.
We need to keep moving along. Thank you very much for that, Steve. It's interesting. Planes, Trains and Dogs and Cars has come up with an interesting factoid. The Fratzog was the original name of the 1960s Dodge logo, hence Fratzonic across the back of the Dodge show car. Okay. All right. We'll take that.
I love that.
We'll take that at face value. Now, Richard, could you just give us a top line for all the details? People can go to the site.
That's right.
But another significant launch and a traditional kind of sports car we've covered off this week.
This is, I mean, look, it's entirely difficult to beat one of the best cars in the world, the Mustang. But if you do want a 2-door, fun, affordable sports car, Toyota 86, or otherwise known as the GR86. Now, Matt Campbell has written a story for us on the update in the price. He went down to Phillip Island and actually drove the thing as well. But what we can reveal that the price is now, it comes in 2 grades. The prices now start at $43,240 for the GT. That's for the manual and the automatic. And the GTS is $45,390. It's a bit of a step up for when it first came out in 2013. Totally. It was like $30,000, $32,000 when it first came out. But it's with us today. This is the second generation of this car. Power output, 174 kilowatts. When it first came out at 147. And torque, I think, stays pretty much the same at 250. 2.4 litre, the 4-cylinder boxer engine. It's beautiful. Frankly, I would marry it if I wasn't married already.
Right.
It's a fantastic car.
All the details, people can check out that story. We've got to keep going. I'll just finish with a third story, that is the ID3 hatchback. Here we are talking about hatches moving to electric, maybe warm and hot hatches. Short story is, more production of ID4 and ID5, the SUVs, has meant that ID3 for Australia, the hatchback, has been shuffled back a bit. So we're going to get, this is according to the local director of passenger cars for VW, ID4, ID5 brought forward at the cost of a later arrival for ID3 hatch. So people who've been in either waiting list for these vehicles, have a look at the story. All the details are there, and you'll be able to work out where you are in the queue. Now, what we will move on to now is cars in the garage. We're going to give a top line mini take on some vehicles that we've been driving in reality and otherwise. We'll get to you in a sec, Steve. Richard, what have you been steering?
I have been steering, and we can talk about it now because the embargo lifted yesterday. The new Haval Jolyon Hybrid. It costs $40,990, which is $8,000 more than the petrol equivalent. I worked out in the video that you would have to drive 129,000 or 130,000 kilometers to make your $8,000 back in fuel savings. So for the average Aussie, that's about 10, 11, 12 years.
I love the thumbnail on your video, Richard. I think the words were something like paying more to save money.
Yeah. I mean, is it worth it? Like, are you going to own that car? You will start making money back. I mean, straight away, because it saves $3 a litre, straight away. But to get the $8,000 back, you'd have to drive at 130,000.
It's a lot of petrol.
A long way.
Well, you have to not buy it to save money. Right? Because you like
by not buying it, you can save 100% of the purchase price. That is a major saving.
Absolutely. So people could see the video. It's on the YouTubes and website now.
Very good, Steve. This again, your trip to the US has led to a pretty interesting experience. This is a car that's kind of been in the garage, but in a different way. Fill us in.
Yeah, so I've been busting to drive the Ford Maverick, the little baby ute.
Front-wheel drive thing?
Well, front drive, I believe it's also available in all-wheel drive in the States over here.
Yeah, gotcha.
Anyway, little baby ute, SUV-based ute. I got to drive a version of it in Ford's state-of-the-art simulator. So again, if you're on YouTube, you might be able to see some images. It's basically the world's best video game, right? So this is the kind of stuff that Formula One teams use. It's actually Ford began using it because their racing teams were using them. And so it's like you sit in effectively a car cockpit, and actually you feel like you're driving an actual car. You are surrounded by screens, but the cockpit actually rises up, and it's on basically all these actuators, and so you're moving the whole time up and down, and you can and you get a feel for the car.
Yes,
and basically, Ford uses it to simulate, develop cars, simulate them in a virtual environment much faster than they can, build prototypes and all that sort of stuff. So, awesome. I'm able to drive it on their virtual proving ground, which instead of having 200 meters of their bump track. Well, they laser scan the bump track and then just copy paste. And so they've got, 1,000 kilometers of bump track, and they can just keep going. They don't have to save all the time just turning around. So
and they can, I suppose, as is always with computer sims, it's then validation in real world rather than actually having to work it out in reality. You're just validating what you've learned in the computer.
That's so wrong.
Well, what they're doing is they're able to develop, before they develop a prototype, they'll develop a virtual prototype, and they can test different methods. Okay, so is it going to be for the suspension? Is it going to be option A, option B, or option C? Yeah, this is what's going to work. So it's really, really interesting.
And we're going to make a shorts video for that as well, I think. So that'll be good.
I almost broke Ford's augmented reality machine in Melbourne when I was in the new Ford Everest, and I had to put the visor on.
Yes.
But I got disorientated in vertigo, and I stood up in the car, and I almost ripped their whole multi-million-dollar setup down.
Nice
one.
Someone
had to actually take it off me and go, calm down.
Those things just make me feel nauseous. Anyway, look, we will keep going. Steve, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, I'll finish us off. I've been in the Kia EV6 GT line. It's the rear-wheel drive, so it's the lesser price, just under $80,000. Single motor, meaning, it's rear-wheel drive, 168 kilowatts. I think it looks really schmick inside and out. Is it a coupe SUV? Is it a hatch, big hatch? Is it a wagon? Hard to say.
Well, it's not a hatch. It's very big.
It's big.
That's a very big car. It's big. It's got Sorrento space.
Well, there's so much room in the cabin. I was going to say, it's just so much room. The adjustable regen braking works really nicely. You get that iPedal mode if you want to go that far, but you can adjust it with the paddles and all that. Nice things like heated and vented front seats, up to 528 theoretically kilometers of range. Pretty sharp service pricing, less than $300 per service for the life of the warranty. Minus side, I reckon the door handles are some of the dumbest door handles I've ever come across.
Yes.
Particularly when we were just in a period of rain in Sydney. You're trying to grab the handle and your hand slips off it. It is
almost broke it off.
it's pretty silly.
Like, yeah.
It's a little bit firm in the ride department, despite being tuned locally. It's got that big battery and the 20s.
It's got which I think is a problem with all electric vehicles.
Yeah.
It's not an electric vehicle I think I've driven yet that is just like
it is.
They can't disguise it. You can't hide that sort of weight.
No. So for me, it's got loads of safety, lots of standard fruit. It looks pretty schmick, but it doesn't have the feel of an 80K car. But I think that's what we've been talking about. It's like a value recalibration in your brain in terms of what an electric vehicle is worth. So
I drove that car and I really loved it. And I looked at it and went, man, that is a lot of money for that car.
Totally.
But if you look at a top of the line Sorrento, now obviously the biggest difference I would say is you can get 7 seats in a Sorrento. But apart from that, if you just want a Sorrento for the 5 seats, but you want the fully loaded schmick Sorrento, I mean, arguably the EV6 makes more sense. It's got more space for those 2 rows. It has more space. It's still got a very generous boot.
Yeah,
it's a better package. It's like you sort of shrink wrapped a Sorrento.
I'm like you. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy driving it.
No, yeah, but it is expensive.
Yeah.
There was
Look, the price will come down. Like my first laptop was $3,000. You know, in the 90s. So it's
is that
like all things.
Is that like a kid's toy? My first laptop?
My first. It wasn't. It was a really good laptop, but it was $3,000, and today it'd be like $800.
Yeah, exactly
from Officeworks.
All right. Well, look. With that, we have reached the finish line. So, thanks to all our listeners and viewers, and thank you, Richard, and thank you, Steve. You can go and stare at the back of your eyelids now.
That would be fantastic.
Well done. All the Ford executives sitting on the edge of the bed, they're going, "Are you done yet? Come on."
Well done to our production guru, Mr. Brett Sullivan. He's a Francis Ford Coppola fan and a car maintenance fanatic. 2 passions neatly summed up by the T-shirt he's wearing today, which says, "I love the smell of WD-40 in the morning." Jump into the conversation. Cars Guide's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Or traditionalists can email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. Listeners, please take a moment to rate and review the show. 5 stars would be great. And viewers, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Cars Guide channel so you can stay on top of all our latest content. But before we go, on the way home last night, I clocked a bloke in traffic next to me, texting and driving. I hate that. I was ropeable. I actually wound down my window and threw my beer at him.
Jeez.
Oh, dear.
Do we have a postal address?
Probably.